This is Gemara Metziah, Daf Pei Ches, and we're holding in the very bottom of Pei Zayin and Beis. First of all, an incredible thank you to all of you that have donated to Torah Anytime's campaign. It's a personal thank you. Do I get anything personally? Of course. I get to know that when I sit here and scream in my computer, there are Jews on the other side of the camera that Baruch Hashem are able to learn together. And I'll be honest, it will pushes me, it will pushes myself to be able to keep on learning, Baruch Hashem, trying to grow a little bit more each and every day together. So I thank you personally, and those who haven't, please try, give a few dollars, give a few more dollars. It's an incredible harbatzas atayra at the highest level, b'siyata dishmayo. Omar Rabbi Yanai, in the very bottom of Pei Zayin of Beis, we've began a discussion of workers, at what point they are allowed to eat from the produce that they are working upon. And that's now giving us a sidebar din, which is going to be the Chiyav in Meiser. So says Rav Yanai, Ina Tevel, Mischayiv in Meiser. Tevel, produce which was not taken off the appropriate Shumais and Meisers, is not Chayiv in Meiser. As we turn over to Peiches Amid Aleph, it's not Chayiv in Meiser ad until Sheyira Penei Habayis, until it sees the face of the house. You could harvest something, but until it goes and sees and is brought into the house, as Rashi, or the Rashi says in the top line, Sheikanes derech haPesach shupenei habayis v'loi derech hagagois v'ikar fifois. That only if the produce is brought in through the main door of the house or the regular entrance, and not if it's to go through the garden or another area, that's when it's chayiv meiser. Shenemar, as the pasuk teaches us in Devarim, Bi'arti HaKodesh min habayis, says the pasuk, I've removed the kodesh, the produce, from my house. Rav Yochanan Amar, afilu chatzer kayvas. Not only if it goes pinei habayis, not only if it goes to the Pesach, the derech habayis, but even if it goes through a chatzer kayvas, even if it goes through a courtyard, which is kaiveya, that as well will be machayev meiser. Shenemar va'achlu b'sharecha v'saveu. So says the Gemara, a machlokes, at what point is the item chayev in meiser? Is it pnei habayis, or is it even a chatzer kaiva? So now we have two psukim. And classically, the Gemara needs to know, what is each man damar? Do it the other pasuk. For Rav Yochanan nami oksiv min habayis. What does Rav Yochanan do with the pasuk of the Tanakama, with the pasuk of Rav Yanai that says that Sheyira Penei Habayis? Amar Lacha responds Rav Yochanan, Chatzer Dumya Debayis. It has to be a Chatzer which is similar to Habayis, which is what? Ma'abayis HaMishtamer, 6 lines down, Peiches Amid Aleph. Av Chatzer HaMishtamer, it has to be a guarded courtyard. V'Rav Yanai, what does he do with Rav Yochanan's pasuk? Nami Oksiv Bisharecha, which Rav Yochanan learned to teach us a Chatzer Kavas. Explains the Gemara, what does Rav Yanai do with the pasuk? U'mibayalei, D'me'ayalei derech shar, that he learns V'achlu Bisharecha, that has to go through the shar. Lafuke, as we already spoke out for Rashi, what does that come to exclude? Derech gagois v'karfifois deloi. That if the produce comes through a roof or a backyard, then there is no chiyuv in meiser. So says the Gemara, there's one detail that is clear. Whether Rav Yanai, whether Rav Yochanan, the gemar melacha is not enough. It has to actually be brought into the bayis. Whether it's the Penei, the Derech HaPesach, whether it's the Chatzer Kayvas, but it's at the juncture when it's brought into the bayis. On this point, Masev Rav Chanina Chayzah, Ki nafshecha kach nafshei shel poyel, says the Gemara, like your nefesh, so too is that which belongs to the worker, that the worker is allowed to eat like the owner. Ma nafshecha, excuse me, ma nafshecha oichel upater. Just like you yourself, you're allowed to eat and be pater from taking off ma'israis and truma. Nafshe shel poyel oichel upater. So to the worker, eat is in pater. Haloi keach. But if someone were to buy the produce, the same produce that the worker is eating at that juncture, chayiv. Says the Gemara, my love bisadeh. We think it's at the exact same time. Bisadeh. That even when the produce is in the field, even before it comes to Bnei Abayis, suggests the Gemara, it sounds like that if you sell it, there's a chiyav in Ma'israis. How could that be? How could that be? Says the Gemara, both Rav Yanai and Rav Yechon both said, it's whether it's the Pesach Habayis or it's the Derech HaChatzir, but it's not Basadeh. Amar Papa, Hacha B'teina Himedes Begina V'Noife Noite LeChatzir Askinon. Says Rav Papa, you know what's going on over here? The Brisa is discussing a fig tree that's in the Gina, the garden, and the branches go into the Chatzir. Uleman Amar Labayis. Or the branches go into the chutzner, or the branches go into the bayis. Meaning that when you're eating them at the place of harvest, you're in the chutzner. You're in the bayis. That's why both Rav Yechon and Rav Yanai would say there is a chiyuv. Ask the Gemara, Yachi, Balabayis nami nechayev. The abayis should also be chayev. Why is it only one who purchased it? Balabayis einav bit einasayv lakeach einav b'mechay. The Balabayis, he's more concerned with the whole tree, and therefore he's not going to be chayev at that juncture. Whereas the purchaser is only looking at the item that he bought. So he bought something which is a complete item, and it's in the bayis or in the chatzir, and therefore that's why he's going to be chayiv. Says the Gemara, v'loikeach midaraisa mi mechayiv. Based on what we just said, it sounds like that the loikeach, one who purchases some produce, is obligated on the biblical level. Asks the Gemara 3 lines from the end. What is the reason that the shops of Beis Hinai were destroyed? Why? What did the shops of Beis Hinai do that they were destroyed 3 years prior to the Churban? Says the Gemara, Mipnei she'amidu divrayim al divrei Torah. You know why? Because they supported their action with divrei Torah. What does that mean? Shayayimrim, the people in the Chanuyos of the Beis Hinai, they would say, as we turn over to Peichesam and Aleph, Aser Taser V'Achalta. You know what they would say? They would say, Aser Taser, says the Pasuk, a famous Pasuk about Ma'aser. But the Pasuk continues, V'Achalta V'Sharecha V'Saveyu. So what would they, V'Achalta V'nei Hashem L'Kecha, excuse me. V'loi Moicher Tvuois, and they would say, V'loi Moicher. And now one that sells the grains, Tvuois Arecha, V'loi Loikeach. So what do we see? We see that on the Daraisa level, there is no Chiyuv. Chiyuv is only Derabanan. Ella explains the Gemara, you're right, Derabanan, because Vachta B'Halma. El Kenavshcha L'Mayel. So if that's true, then what's the Pasuk coming to teach us? L'Tanya says the Gemara, Kenavshcha, Ma Navshcha Im Chasamta Pater. Just like when it comes to you eating it yourself, if you muzzle yourself and you don't eat it, you're not chayiv. Af poyel im chasamta pater. If you muzzle the worker and you don't allow him to eat it, you're not chayiv. So it's teaching us a sidebar din. So we've explained how it could work even within the psukim. It says cross machta ba'alma. Continues the Gemara back in the root machlekes. The machlekes Rav Yanai and Rav Yechon, which again was at which point the produce is chayiv in meiser? Is it at the Pnei Derech Habayis, or is it a Chatzar Kavas? So Masiv Rav Zutra, Mar Zutra, 6 lines down, Ezeu Garnon Lemaisrais. What is the Garnon for Meiser? Bikishon Bediloim, cucumbers and gourds. Misha Yafsiku, Vamer Avasim. What does it mean, Shefsiku? Mishnat al Pika Shalahem. When their blossoms are removed, my love. Meshe Bazaku Afilu Basada. It sounds like even in the field, once that blossom is removed, it's Chayv and Meiser. I Rav Yanai, I Rav Yochanan said only when it goes into the Bayis or the Chatzikay Vas. Answers Gemara Loi. It means Mishivsaku Babayis. Iyachim Mishivsaku Ad Shivsaku Ibayale. When they pluck it off, it should be at the time that it is. Itan Ad Shivsaku explains the Gemara Hava Amina 12 lines down. I would have thought, what would the Hava Amina have been if it said Ad Shivsaku? I would have thought Ad Digamar Lebikusayu. I would have thought until their loss of blossom is complete, till all the fruits lose their blossoms. Kamash malad misha yifsaku mechias chilu pikusayu. When the beginning of the blossoms are lost, that is enough. So says the Gemara, no kasha. Gemara tries again. Masim Arzucha again asking, and Rav Yanai asking, Rav Yochanan said that the produce is chayiv in meiser only when it comes to bnei abayis or bnei chatzer chayvas. So Masim Arzucha braid Rav Nachman, first one in line, 15 lines down is bray. Garnoi lemeiser lechayiv alam misham tevel. The gairen is when one is chayiv in meiser due to the problem of tevel. Misha tigmar melachton, when the work is complete. Vezehu megamar melachton. Meleches hanichnas son. What is the gemar melacha? It's the work of hachnasa. What does that mean? Explains the Gemara. My love, does this not mean achnasa afilu ba'asadeh? Then what does it mean achnasa even in the field? Loi. Answers Gemara, no kash achnasa l'bayis. Zeu gemar melachtam v'baisema. Second there, it's kikam Rav Yanai. Bezeitim ba'anavin delavin egarin. And when did Rav Yanai, when did Rav Yochanan, they say they're din? By items that don't have a gairin stage. That's when they said it's either comes b'nei abayis or it comes by the chatzar kayvas. But explains the Gemara, aval chitin usayrim wheat and barley gairin behed yaksiv bei, and therefore that's going to be the point that is chayiv, and Rav Yanai, Rav Yochanan will be maskim to such a timing. That concludes our sidebar discussion about meisers. Now we go back to our original discussion about at what point workers are allowed to eat from the produce that they are working with. Ashkechan Adam, says the Gemara, b'mechubar v'shar b'talish. We've seen mikairais for a person eating the attached produce, an animal eating detached produce. But Adam b'talash minalan. Where do we know that a Adam as well could work with talush, with detached produce? Where do we see that? Says the Gemara, Kal v'chaymer mishar. Umashar she'na oichel b'mechubar. Shar does not eat an attached stuff, yet oichel b'talosh. Other shachel b'mechubar and didn't oichel b'talosh is simple Kal v'chaymer. Says the Gemara, no. Malu shar shkinata mitzav l'chasim asoi. There's a tzivoy that you're not allowed to muzzle the shar. Timer ba'adam she'ata mitzav l'chasim asoi. There's no explicit decree not to muzzle a person. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Why don't we say that there's also a problem muzzling a person? We should learn that didn't goof out from a kal v'chaymer. That what? Mishar. Umashar she'ata mitzav l'achiyah, so you don't have to keep it alive yet. After mitzav l'chazimah, so yadam she'ata mitzav l'achiyah, so you din. She'ata mitzav l'chazimah, on that, Amar Kra, Kinavshecha, says the pasuk, like yourself, Kinavshe shel poyel, ma navshe chasantoi potter poyel chasantoi, you're going to be potter. So says the Gemara, so now we're back to square one. Vela adam be'talosh minol, and what is the makar that a worker working on detached produce is allowed to eat it? Amar Kra, says the Gemara, kama beis pamim. The word kama, standing grain, is listed 2 times. Emeina yinyin la'adam b'mechabar, t'nei edin la'adam b'talish. So apply it to a person when it comes to Talish, Mikar number 1, then Adam B'Talish is going to be allowed to eat this stuff. Rav Amai Amar, says Rav Ami, no. Adam B'Talish Leitzarach Kra, why not? Ksiv on the first variable on Ki Tavai B'Karim Reyecha. Milo Yaskina, are we not dealing Shesachar Lekatef? You hired someone to transfer items by carrying it from Rachwana Leichel. And therefore the Torah still says you can eat it. So says the Gemara, we don't need a Kal V'Chaimer, we can learn it out explicitly. So that's going to be Makar number 1 and 2 for Adam being able to consume Talush, produce that is detached. Continues the Gemara, Shar bin Mechaber Minali. 1 second. Where do we know that a Shar is allowed to eat bin Mechaber? Explains the Gemara, Kal V'Chaimer me Adam the other way. Ma Adam she'nechol b'Talush she'nechol bin Mechaber she'nechol b'Talush she'nechol bin Mechaber. But says more 1 second, there's no din to keep the shar alive. Says more, what do you mean? So learn that a shar is mitzvah for the same kavachaymer. Yeah, it's about the mitzvah. You have to keep the person alive. Amar Kra, v'chei achicha yimach, achicha v'lo yishar. V'lashar b'machura b'mernala, it says the Gemara, okay, Gavaldik, so we're back to square 1. How do we know a shar b'mechabar? Amar Kra, says the Gemara, says the pasuk, re'echa beis pamim. So that's going to be the Makar, number 1 from Mishar bin Mechabar. We conclude with Ravina Amar Le, the Metal Shal bin Mechabar Tzich Ikra. Says Ravina, you don't need psukim for either. Why not? Tachsev Lo Yisachshim Shar B'Disha, and we turn over to Peitasam and Aleph. Michti Kol Mili Yisnai B'Chasima, says Ravina. Diavina Shar Shar Mi Shabbos. So imkain, if that's true, lichter Rachman Allah Sadush b'chasima. Shar, because Rachman Allah, why does the Torah have to spell out shar? La'akushe chaysam lenechtam v'nechtam l'chaysam. We make one big equation now, which is muzzled to that, to the one who is muzzling and back and forth. Ma'chaysam eichal b'mechaber av nechsam eichal mechaber ma'nechsam eichal b'tosh av chaysam b'tosh. Says Ravina, we have one Gzeir Shava flowing it back and forth. It teaches both. We'll pick it up from there. B'siyata dishmaya.